Good evening. Thanks for joining us. You're watching News at 10 with me, Azlani Adani. The national COVID-19 tally now stands at 110,485 after another 1,870 people tested positive for the virus as at noon today. Health Director General Tan Sri Dr. Noor Hisham Abdullah said Johor reported the highest number of daily cases for the first time since the pandemic began, with the country with 607 cases. In a statement, Tan Sri Dr. Noor Hisham said majority of the cases were contributed by the existing clusters as well as close contact screenings conducted by the ministry. With 22,562 cases being active, he said 131 patients are currently in the intensive care unit, with 62 of them requiring ventilator support. The Health DG also reported a total of 87,460 recoveries made as another 745 patients treated and discharged today. He said that the country's total fatality count now stands at 463 after 6 new deaths were reported in the last 24 hours. The Health Ministry also detected 8 new clusters today while declaring the end of another 5. As such, the number of clusters registered in the country so far is 506, with 223 of them being active. Relevant authorities such as Jabatan Kemajuan Islam Malaysia JAKIM, the Domestic Trade and Consumer Affairs KPDN HEP and the Mufti have already issued their respective statements regarding the halal status of import meats. Minister at the Prime Minister's Department of Religious Affairs, Dr. Zulkifli Muhammad Al-Bakri, said Muslims in the country are now free to choose whether or not to continue consuming imported meats.
Hadis sebut dah ma yaribuka ila ma la yaribuka. Tinggal apa yang menjadi keraguan kepada apa yang tidak menjadi keraguan. Sebab itu saya sendiri 2 hari lepas telah pergi ke 2 tempat untuk nak memastikan daging import yang benar-benar mengikut piawaian dan juga garis panduan dan SOP.
He was elaborating on the statement by Deputy Perak Mufti Datuk Zamri Hashim to exercise their consumer power and temporarily refrain from purchasing import meats until its halal status can be fully determined. Meanwhile, regarding the suggestion by Driving Committee Chairman of Majlis Perundingan Melayu MPM to reshuffle JAKIM, Datuk Dr. Zulkifli said it was still too early to decide on the matter. The Domestic Trade and Consumer Affairs Ministry KPDN HEP will be conducting continuous monitoring and inspections under the Trade Description Act 2011 as part of efforts to ensure that all imported meat supplies are certified halal. For that purpose, its Deputy Minister Dr. Rosal Wahid said all traders who sell these products in the market will now have to display the halal certificate from a certified supplying company. Explaining further, he said stern actions will be taken against those who violate the rules or regulations stipulated by the government.
Jadi walaupun di packaging daging sebut dah ada tanda halal, tapi untuk nak meyakinkan lagi pengguna supaya diwawarkan ataupun dipamerkan. Kalau boleh dibesarkan, sama ada di signboard ke di mana supaya dapat mudah dilihat oleh pelanggan.
Speaking after monitoring the festive season maximum price control scheme for Christmas in Hulu, Terengganu, he said there were only 10 cases of non-compliance with the scheme and the violators had been compounded RM1,100 each. The violations were detected as a result of inspections conducted on 9,629 premises from 22nd December until today. Meanwhile, in Johor, a meat supplying company and 2 of its directors have been slapped with 2 charges today at the Johor Bahru Sessions Court for using the halal logo without certification by the authorities early this month. The company, represented by Rahana Kasim, 42, and Rahman Sheikh Abdullah, 44, pleaded not guilty after the charges were read before Judge Muhammad Halda Abdul Aziz. The company, which claimed to be offering services that are halal, was charged for using a halal logo that was not certified by the authorities on its lorry. The second charge was put against the 2 individuals involving a similar offence on a different lorry. The company, which was charged under the Trade Description for Certification and Marking of Halal Order 2011, is facing a fine of up to RM200,000 and for every second or subsequent offence of up to RM500,000 if found guilty. As for Rahman and Raihana, who were were charged in their capacity as directors of the company are facing a maximum fine of 100,000 ringgit or imprisonment for up to 3 years or both. And for every second or subsequent offence, fine or up to 250,000 ringgit or up to 5 years jail or both if convicted. The court also both of the accused a bail of 40,000 ringgit with one surety each and set 19th January for mention. Dato' Azhar Azizan Harun and Dato' Sri Azalina Osman Said will continue their duties as Dewan Rakyat Speaker and Deputy Speaker respectively after the High Court ruled that their appointments were valid. Judge Dato' Ahmad Kamal Mat Shahid today allowed the application by Dato' Azhar Azizan, Dato' Sri Azalina and 2 others to strike out an origination summons filed against them which challenged the legitimacy of their appointments. The summons was previously filed by the former Prime Minister Tun Dr. Mahathir Mohamad and 4 others who sought a declaration that the appointments of both individuals were invalid as they were unconstitutional. However, Judge Dr. Ahmad Kamal found that the appointments were valid and cannot be questioned by the court after studying the oral and written submissions of both plaintiff and defendants. He stressed that Article 57 of the Federal Constitution clearly states that it is the Parliament that determines the removal and the election of the Speaker and Deputy Speaker. The year 2020 saw more than 10 court trials being held involving politicians who were charged for corruptions or money laundering worth tens of millions of ringgit. Despite many of the trials postponed due to the movement control order, the cases were still brought to court in stages after about 2 months. One of the high-profile cases which received a lot of attention from the public and the world was the SRC International Sdn Bhd trial involving former Prime Minister Datuk Sri Najib Tun Razak. On 28 July, the court found him guilty of 7 charges of abuse of power, criminal breach of trust and money laundering in relation to 42 million ringgit belonging to SRC International. The former Premier was sentenced to 12 years jail and fined 210 million ringgit for the offence related to abuse of power. He was also ordered to serve 10 years of jail, each for the 3 counts of money laundering, but the court set the sentences to run concurrently. Datuk Sri Najib was granted a stay of execution pending his appeal to the Court of Appeal. Another high-profile case was the corruption trial of Datuk Sri Tengku Adnan Tengku Mansor. The former Federal Territories Minister was sentenced to 12 months jail and fined 2 million ringgit after he was found guilty of the 2 million ringgit graft charge. High Court Justice Muhammad Zaini Mazlan made the ruling after finding that Datuk Sri Tengku Adnan failed to raise any reasonable doubt in the prosecution's case. However, he was granted a stay of execution pending his appeal to the Court of Appeal. Meanwhile, former Federal Land Development Authority Felda Chairman Tan Sri Muhammad Isa Abdul Samad would only know his fate on 3rd February next year on a 3.09 million ringgit graft charge in relation to a hotel purchase in Sarawak. The court fixed the date after hearing Deputy Public Prosecutor Afzai Nizam Abdul Aziz and defence lawyer Datuk Salihuddin Saidin gave their oral submission in the case. Hearing of the case began on 8th October last year with the prosecution calling 22 witnesses to testify while the defence had called 6 witnesses. Tan Sri Muhammad Isa was charged with 9 counts of receiving gratification for himself in cash totaling 3,090,000 ringgit from a board member of a company for helping to approve the purchase of the hotel by Felda Investment Corporation Sdn Bhd FICSB. Another high-profile court case was the conviction of a 19-year-old teenager for the murder of 23 individuals who died in a fire at Pusat Tahfiz Darul Quran Ittifaqiyah in Kuala Lumpur. On 17 August, the court sentenced him to imprisonment at the behest of the Yang di-Pertuan Agong after the defence had failed to raise reasonable doubt in its case throughout the trial. The COVID-19 pandemic is a major global incident which debilitated many countries, Malaysia being no exception. In our 2020 Flashpoint segment, let's take a look back into the major incidents and flashpoints that occurred in the country which had changed our daily lives and its new norms.
Kementerian Kesihatan mengesahkan 3 kes novel coronavirus berlaku di negara ini melibatkan warga China.
The main reason for this declaration is not because of what is happening in China, but because of what is happening in other countries.
Pesakit merupakan seorang lelaki warga negara Malaysia. Berumur 41 tahun dari Selangor.
We have therefore made the assessment that COVID-19 can be characterized as a pandemic.
Situasi semasa wabak ini memerlukan tindakan drastik diambil bagi memulihkan keadaan secepat mungkin. Dan untuk itu kerajaan memutuskan untuk melaksanakan perintah kawalan pergerakan mulai 18 Mac 2020 iaitu lusa hingga 31 Mac 2020 di seluruh negara.
Following the implementation of the Movement Control Order MCO, all activities outside homes were prohibited. All government and private premises were instructed to close with the exception of essential services. The MCO was initially planned to last for only 2 weeks but was extended and remained in effect until 12 May. After 47 days, the government announced a minor loosening of protocols with the implementation of the conditional MCO effective 4th May until 9th June, followed by the recovery MCO from 10th June until 31st August. However, some localities recorded high numbers of cases and transmission rates, forcing the implementation of Enhanced Movement Control Orders (EMCO). On 12 October, Senior Minister for Security Datuk Seri Ismail Sabri Yaakob announced a drastic measure to impose the CMCO in Selangor, Kuala Lumpur and Putrajaya, as Malaysia recorded 1,228 new daily infection, the first ever 4-digit of new COVID-19 cases on 24th October. Following that, interstate travel were not allowed. On 7th December, the government lifted the interstate travel ban nationwide except in areas placed under EMCO. In turn, police no longer conducted roadblocks and instead turned their focus toward upholding the adherence of Standard Operating Procedures (SOP). In the most recent development, the CMCO in Selangor, Kuala Lumpur and Sabah was extended until 14 January 2021 following high cumulative case numbers and the emergence of new clusters. Malaysia has recently signed a purchasing agreement with 3 COVID-19 vaccine developers, COVAX, Pfizer-BioNTech and AstraZeneca, ensuring the supply of vaccines to 40% of the Malaysian population. The government will also be finalizing agreement with Sinovac, CanSino and Gamaleya to obtain additional vaccines to increase the vaccination rate of Malaysians up to 83%. Coming up, a mandatory EPF contribution set on the 15th every month. The Employees Provident Fund (EPF) announced that employers are required to remit their mandatory EPF contribution on the 15th of every month, beginning January 2021. According to a statement released today, EPF said this is in line with the original contribution payment date stipulated by them. Previously, EPF provided an extension for contribution payment from the 15th to the 30th of every month from April until December 2020. The intention was to ease the burden of employers in light of uncertainty surrounding the COVID-19 pandemic. The contribution payment date will be reverted to the original date to ensure employee contributions are paid without delay. The statement further explained that contribution payments can be made on the EPF website via the iAccount Employer Portal, Internet Banking, or by visiting the counter of appointed banks. The Malaysian Agricultural Research and Development Institute MARDI has launched 3 food and beverage innovation products, which is in line with its efforts to provide quality and healthy food to the people. Deputy Agriculture and Food Industry Minister Datuk Cik Abdullah Maknawi said the 3 products include the surimi meatloaf, fish burger, as well as a prefabricated coffee with pegaga extract. He explained that the food and beverage innovation technology was produced by MARDI through research which was conducted within 1 to 3 years. He said the Agricultural and Food Industries Ministry has allocated 46 million ringgit this year for MARDI to conduct the relevant studies.
Apabila ada inovasi ataupun kajian-kajian baru untuk mengeluarkan produk-produk baru seperti mana tadi kita tengok surimi dan sebagainya tu, mana dia boleh membantu usahawan-usahawan untuk meningkatkan usahawan mereka. Dan yang penting juga oleh kerana concern terhadap makanan sihat sekarang ni. Jadi makna dengan kajian yang dibuat oleh MARDI ni, kita tidak boleh nak claim sesajalah makan ni boleh kuat tu, boleh kuat ni dan sebagainya. Semuanya ada sokongan saintifik yang melalui penyelidikan yang berdisiplin lah.
Speaking after the launch of MARDI's food innovation products in Pasir Putih, Kelantan, he added that all of the new products are beneficial to consumers as they are high in protein and antioxidants with no trans fatty acids. The Foreign Ministry has confirmed that no Malaysians were involved in the 6.4 magnitude earthquake which struck Petrinya, located 60 kilometers from the Croatian capital Zagreb yesterday. In a statement, the Malaysian embassy in Zagreb had successfully contacted Malaysians living in Zagreb and none have been reported to be in harm's way. The ministry said Malaysia extended its sympathies and condolences to the Croatian government and its people, especially those who have been directly affected by the disaster. The Malaysian embassy in Zagreb can be reached at the numbers and email on your screen. We begin with local football updates. Japanese football legend Masashi Motoyama has been confirmed to be a part of the Kelantan United FC squad. This was confirmed by KUFC President Datuk Cik Abdullah Maknawi in a press conference today. Motoyama, 41, was part of the Japanese national squad that won the Asia Cup back in 2004. Having 18 years of experience playing for Kashima Antlers and having 8 J-League titles, Datuk Cik Abdullah said Motoyama could help Kelantan to qualify for the Malaysian Super League in 2022. The Japanese was brought in as part of a strategic collaboration between the club with the Yakult Malaysia, who sponsored 250,000 ringgit for the development of the club. He also said that KUFC is seeking to adopt the Japanese working culture and strategy management in efforts to strengthen the position of their football club. And that concludes this evening's News at 10. In our top story, Muslims free to exercise consumer power in purchasing imported meat. Join us for more updates at 12:30 p.m. tomorrow. Thanks for watching. I'm Mazlani Adani. Stay tuned to Saluran Berita RTM and good night.